I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but I think stories are our earliest form of digesting information.
Agreed.
It's like it's a floppy disk, but before we had floppy disk, it's writing before writing.
Yeah.
It's giving us little anecdotes or facts that'll just leave us immediately.
Yeah.
But I think our brains are built to remember story. And I also think that when somebody walks in a room and they go, hey guys, this crazy thing, we give them 10 seconds. Right?
So smart. Because I watch the documentary you did about comedy clubs, working like 5 comedy clubs in a night in New York City.
Oh, the special.
441.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Thank you.
And it's like, you know what I love about that? It brings people into a world. It's on YouTube if people want to watch it. It brings people into the world of where you and I know each other from New York comedy clubs.
Yeah.
Mostly the Comedy Cellar, of how much comedy comedians do in a night. Because if you're an audience member, you're just going and you see Greer Barnes and Andrew Schulz and Mike Birbiglia. Yeah. Meanwhile, the whole bunch of us are going like club to club to club to club. And it's like, it's a grind.
Well, now it's easy because the Cellar has 14 different comedy clubs.
Yeah, I know.
But probably definitely when you were doing the rounds in the city.
Yeah.
And then when I was doing them, we're going from like the Upper East to downtown, back in a cab, back to the Upper East.
Yeah.
Across to Stand Up New York.
Oh, I know. What did you, from filming that?
We have it the most tough, actually.
I do?
We do.
How come?
Which is comedians. Like, I know there's a lot of other people out there that think their jobs are tough.
No, we have it definitely really tough.
Taking fucking Ubers around New York City to talk for 15 minutes, man. I mean, nobody understands
it's
us, dude.
It's a challenge. No, but I don't think it's hard, but I do think that the documentary sort of opens out a world that people wouldn't realize is behind the scenes.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, realistically, like the reason I did it that way is because I just didn't have a place I could do an hour of comedy.
Yeah.
So I broke my hour into like 5 different rooms. And then I just filmed all 5.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I was like, all right. And then I was like, oh, this will kind of be cool. So
this was like 2018.
Yeah, this was way back in the day.
2017.
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. Time.
This is way
Time
back.
Flies, bro.
This is way back when. People wouldn't imagine. By the way, people wouldn't imagine we would be friendly or friends.
Why?
I don't even know what we are. Are we friends? Are we
Yeah,
friendly?
we're
Are we
friends.
work friends?
Yeah,
Sometimes I
we're
think
friends.
of comedians as work friends.
Yeah, we're like work friends. I feel like we're work friends, but I feel like we're almost like able to connect a little bit more since there doesn't seem to be like any kind of like competitiveness or rivalry.
That's interesting. Do you think because there was before, like
no,
like
I think
years
sometimes
ago?
like guys that are in like similar spaces, they're
right.
Like at least in our field, people are like really competitive and also a lot of times really insecure, and that sometimes makes relationships a little trickier. Where I feel like you and I never felt like any negative energy towards you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we have
like, what are we competing over?
No, but I think people would not imagine us being coworkers.
Why?
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 Well, you know why.
Well, no, tell me.
Our comedy is not even remotely similar to one another's.
I would say
we don't look or sound like one another in any way, shape, or form.
I think that you're speaking more on like a political expectation of me versus a political expectation of you.
Maybe that's part of it.
Less
our politics are probably very different.
Maybe. I don't know. I think our politics might be different based on your assumption of my politics. No. Which is based on what I put out in the world, so it's a completely fair assumption.
Right.
Like
No, I thought it's funny. I was listening to you on Dax.
And
I thought you had astute political observations that I very much agree with. Like, for example, you were like, AOC is one of the best things Democrats have going for us. Basically because, AOC and Bernie are basically saying, like, let's get money distributed and get money to the people and get jobs back for working people. And it was like, I couldn't agree more. So
I think
in
she
that
wants
way,
to help.
What's that?
I think she wants to help.
She wants to help.
I think at her core.
That's right.
And I think Bernie at his core wants to help. And I think it's really hard. Like, you got to be really tribal to see someone who wants to help other people and then hate them. Now, I think some of her rhetoric is inflammatory. Like, she gets a little flagrant. You know what I mean? Like she's on my podcast.
Are you plugging your own
I'm just
podcast?
telling you.
I saw her say she likes you, actually.
She got great taste. But
did you see that?
I did not see it. I
Have you met her?
That up. No, I haven't. But I want to talk to her actually because like she did something that I thought was like really interesting, which is, and I don't want to be like too political, obviously, because people throw it out. But like I think her area, her area voted for her and Trump.
I know all about this.
But I think that's like a really important thing to understand.
It is.
That means her area isn't polarized politically. That means her area is going, who's going to help us?
Yeah.
So despite
who's our person?
It's like, and I thought that was like one of the coolest things. Like it made me proud to be a New Yorker. I was like, wow, we're making decisions, right or wrong. We see what happens.
Yeah.
But based on the people that are communicating, they're going to help us.
Yeah.
Regardless of what party they're in.
That's interesting. I mean, and of course, you famously interviewed Trump, and then my phone lit up because you interviewed Trump. I had to be like, yes, and I like him, and he's a good guy. And
well, thank you for defending me, but you don't have to.
But the only thing that I would criticize about it is just like it's just a lot of softballs. And then I saw you talk about it, and you were saying, well, I brought up IVF, I brought up this, I brought up this. Yeah. But I think it's a little naive, willfully naive, to think that that was people's takeaway.
I think that's a really good criticism. Yeah, I think it's a really fair criticism. I think what I noticed is the second the episode came out, like the left was cheering me on like crazy. Yes. And they were like, finally somebody did it. Finally somebody made fun of him and laughed in his face and all that stuff. And when I saw that, I was like, I gotta go watch this. Like, yeah, because I didn't think that was gonna be takeaway. And then the right was going, finally somebody humanizes him. So like both sides are cheering this interview. Right. And then I was like, oh shit, did we do it? Did we like humanize somebody, but at the same time laugh at the absurdity? Right. And did we actually do like a great interview? Like, did both sides thought appease their like emotional reactivity? And I mean, never going to make everybody happy, but that was I guess I don't want to say that was the goal, to appease both sides, but like I wanted to understand him as a human being, and I didn't want it to be like I thought like the only way to satisfy the left would be if it was like a gotcha interview. Yeah. Because I think not everybody, but I don't think there's people there that like, I imagine they see Trump in the same way that like during the civil rights movement, somebody might have seen, Republicans that like really didn't seem concerned with like black rights. So I feel like there's no way in winning those folks without like speaking about him or towards him as if he's like this super villain. Right. So like, even if there were softballs, as you said, like even if they were hardballs, it wouldn't be enough unless I literally tried to demolish him. That would be the only way. Right. Because I think they see him in the same way that people see, nefarious characters throughout history.
But you didn't even come at him the way you came at Tom Brady.
What did I say to Tom Brady? Oh,
the roast.
At the roast, yeah, with the roast jokes. Yeah, because that was a roast.
Like, but you're a roast comedian.
Yes, but I wasn't doing a roast of the president. Is that the expectation?
That was mine. I don't know.
Right. No, I feel like I approached him the same way I approached any guest that comes on. Like when Cuban came on, I was just curious about his ideas. Like I don't like to do gotcha interviews no matter who it is. Right. Like when we had
I don't either.
But like when we had like Hassan Piker, it wasn't, hey, we're going to try to dig up everything horrible you've said and like get you. It was like, hey, you might have a different, philosophy on how the world should be. And like, let's try to understand it.
The only one, I feel like Trump is fair game. He's a presidential candidate. He can be on entertainment shows. The only one that you had that kind of made me question your ethics in booking is Alex Jones.
That's completely reasonable.
How do you feel about it, especially being a dad now?
Yeah.
Because we all know what he did.
Yeah, what he did was awful.
What he did is the most heinous, and if you're a parent, it's like a next level of heinous.
Yeah, it's brutal. You can't even imagine it. Yeah, I think that it's a tricky thing. It's something that I've had to like. I don't have like a good like answer for it. It was. Yeah, I wish I had like a really good answer for it. I think you're right, and it was something I was thinking about in the time, and I was like, no, this figure's interesting. There's all this other stuff popping up that seems so like unbelievable, all this like Epstein stuff, all this conspiracy stuff. And I think I got like a little caught up in all this conspiracy stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck is really going on? I think there's this part of me that was like, is this guy privy to what's really going on? And I think that allowed me to kind of not like be blind to it. I still thought it was heinous. There was a point in the pod where he like tried to justify it, and I made sure that he wasn't allowed to justify it. And but yeah, would I do it now having a kid? No. Yeah. I think it's a really reasonable criticism. And ultimately it's one of those things that you just got to carry for the rest of your career.
Right.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's
but what was your feeling on it? Maybe you can help me understand mine better.
To me, it's like, I like discussion, and I like podcasts that mix it up. For me, it's like, he's one of those people you just go, no, what you did is so definitively evil. It's just hard for me to come back from that.
So again, this is like the worst form. What I'm about to do, I've learned through like therapy with my wife, is like the worst thing to do.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like the skills we develop as comedians are the worst things for communicating with our spouses, which is like,
that's very funny.
All being comedian is like finding rationalizations for things you shouldn't rationalize, examples, and then justifying behavior, which is the last thing you do.
Yeah.
Right? But like, you went and saw the Pope.
Oh yeah.
Now, when in terms of like acts of violence to children,
I talk about this in my show.
So
I talk about this in my show. I had a lot of qualms about it.
Yeah, but not enough to not do it.
Right. What I say in the show is, the Pope Francis is good, but only compared to other popes. Like if you met him at a party, you'd be like, this fucking guy.
Sure,
you know
sure.
what I mean?
And obviously, what we're referring to is the idea of like knowing that there were like pedophile. What is
heinous, the most heinous institutional crimes in
and
the
then moving
last
them around and then like
30 years.
essentially protecting the institution because of that.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Right. And yet there were these amazing things that you probably want to connect with the Pope and get these like cool experiences, et cetera. And like maybe he's not the guy who's the one responsible for it, So I think there's a way you justified it. But I guess what I'm saying is that like, like I had Trump on, like you've met Obama.
True.
Like if you ask people, like, getting married in Yemen, if Obama's like a good guy, they might be like, well, I can't answer that because I'm dead.
Right.
So
they wouldn't be able to answer that.
In terms of like the people who have done, I think Alex Jones has become like this example of like the worst person that's ever lived because of this horrendous thing that he did that like hurt these people's
Sandy
families.
Hook parents.
Yeah.
Where he portrayed them as
liars.
Actors?
No, he portrayed the parents
lying.
As liars, and the kids that were killed as actors, which is disgusting. It's horrible.
Yeah.
He himself did not protect any pedophiles. He did not fuck any kids and like protect them. And he didn't like murder, so far that we know, hundreds of thousands of people, or not responsible for an army murdering hundreds of thousands of people. So I think the way I justified it is going like, if people can chum it up with like presidents who are literally going, yeah, let's murder hundreds of thousands of people for Boeing or Raytheon or whatever company is going to get super rich, and not really to like protect the American people or an institution. And I'm not trying to like bag on Catholics. I actually like, my family's Catholic. I have a lot of protection,
and a huge amount of ticket buyers are
God,
Catholic.
I love them. They have a lot of kids. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, sometimes there's this like moral equivalency thing where it's just like, it's very easy for us to just be like, the only bad people that exist are the ones that are over there.
Oh, 100%. Sure.
It's like, how could you talk to Trump? How could you talk to Alex Jones? And it's just like, but I'll hang out with these guys who are responsible for like way more murder and rape than the other ones. We never look at our own and go, are they capable of doing horrible things? I'm a big Obama guy. Love Obama.
I think there's an irony in this moment right now, politically, which is, and I don't do political comedy, so this show's working it out. So, but most of us won't end up in my show. But it is something that confounds me. Is like, I feel like you're part of a movement in the last 10 years by comedians to be like, hey, let us say whatever we want.
Sure.
It's a kind of a free speech movement, and I've been, I generally, I feel like that's a good impulse. I think saying more than less leads to more honest conversations, which I think leads to better outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that the thing recently with the deporting protesters has really made me second guess whether or not this administration was ever about free speech. Do you feel on edge about any of that stuff right now? Like I feel like my tribe, which I don't always agree with, I think is very on edge about Trump right now, because we feel like it feels like, hey, it's free speech, but our free speech
is not allowed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's our free speech, not everyone's free speech.
This is the thing that, like,
do you feel on edge about that, like, at all?
No.
You don't.
But this is the thing that, like, my concern is that the second the right got power, the right, and we're going to use these like loose terms.
Sure.
I'm not talking about like 80% of the people in the middle. I'm talking about like the extremes, right? Like,
sure.
So is that they were going to commit the exact same mistakes that they were fighting against for the last 4-8 years.
Right.
And that would be restricting the speech of people that disagree with them.
Yeah.
It's very easy to be in the situation where you're going like, hey, let me say things and I'm being censored and I'm not going to. The second you're in power, you're the one that censors.
Yeah.
So you have to work diligently at allowing people to say whatever they want to say.
Yeah.
So like, I think the biggest mistake that people make like about comedy is like this idea that people are allowed to be offended or aren't allowed to react however they want. Like if I say
agree.
a joke, like and it hurts you because of something that you experienced in your life, you're allowed to feel hurt.
100%.
You're allowed to hate me. You're allowed to have opinions on me that are unfounded based on a headline you saw.
Yeah, yeah.
I decided to put something out that somebody headlined that way.
That's true.
Like I have to accept that. That's just part of the reality, right? But like if there's anything that I do that offends you, I'm never going to do it to you again because I don't want to like hurt your feelings. Like you're a nice person. But don't restrict my ability to go tell that joke somewhere else.
Sure.
And the audience will ultimately tell me if the joke is good or bad.
Yeah.
And if it's bad, please believe I'm not confident enough to keep doing it.
Yeah.
I'm insecure too. I want the audience to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I got to keep tweaking and whittling it and making it better.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think being a touring comedian gives you a certain perspective of the country that is very different from people who just live in New York City and Los Angeles. I've said this for years on this podcast, but it's like when people will often say to me in New York, they'll go, oh, you're going to Ohio this weekend. What's that going to be like? I'm like, it's going to be great. Yeah. People in Ohio are great. What are you talking about?
I do feel like we need to bring back some coastal elitism though. I do feel like it's at an all-time low and I don't like it. The country is better when we're arrogant.
I have a joke about it, which is people call me a coastal elite just because I live on a coast and I'm better than other people.
That's great.
And I want people to know that I also live part of the year in Aspen.
That's great.
I mean, I've probably known you 10 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, do you remember where we first met?
I think it was just at the Cellar having talks. Like, you and Noam would talk about a lot of stuff politically.
Yeah.
And then, like, you and I would chop it up. And then I hit you up for advice about not trying to plug special, but just because the special is like a story arc. Like, I asked you just for advice about storytelling. And
was it helpful?
Very helpful. Yeah. And you were very generous.
You remember any of it?
Yeah, I thought like specific things that you're saying is like one, you were like, because I was like, I'm reading all these books and stuff like that, and you're like, yeah, I think that's actually good. And then you were like, you said this thing which I've heard other people also say, not trying to take away credit from you, but saying that it's like, I think the top level storytellers get it. It's like, don't just go and then.
Right.
You're like, make sure everything that happens forces another thing to happen.
So then instead of and then.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's how you word it.
We talk about that on this podcast all the time.
Yeah, and I was like, I was like really grateful because it's very, I guess, easy when you're first starting is just to go and then this happened and then this happened.
Right.
And it's just boring.
It's even good advice, by the way, for people who aren't professional storytellers.
Just anybody.
Think of anything in terms of so then.
Yeah.
It's much more interesting.
It's so much, and anyway, I was very grateful that you shared that. You had some other things you were saying, but I thought that was like the most potent one for me. It's like, what does this cause?
Yes.
What is this? Does this make this next thing necessary?
Yeah, and it works really well in the special. I found myself hooked in, and I had seen pieces of it at the Cellar, and it was hilarious in the 15-minute increments, but like it really does have a cliffhanger element of it, even though I know
The end.
I know the end.
So I tell the end in the beginning.
Yeah.
And but
I know you have a daughter. I know it worked out. And yet, when you're struggling with fertility and you're struggling with medical issues with your wife,
Yeah.
I'm worried.
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch that and have it work.
I credit you for this all the time. Like just really making sure that each thing forces the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think that like I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but I think stories are our earliest form of digesting information.
Agreed.
It's like it's a floppy disk, but before we had floppy disk, it's writing before writing.
Yeah.
It's giving us little anecdotes or facts that'll just leave us immediately.
Yeah.
But I think our brains are built to remember story. And I also think that when somebody walks in a room and they go, "Hey guys, this crazy thing," we give them 10 seconds. Right?
So smart.
But it's true. Like
It's 100% true.
it shuts down. Like
Not only that, your special is a super smart thing. You open on a joke from the middle of the special, then you go credit sequence, then you go to special.
Yeah.
Same reason that you're saying 10 seconds. First 10 seconds, you got to
That's
get
right.
them with a joke.
Yeah. I was actually concerned putting it out. Like it took me, I had a difficult task. I wanted to do kind of like I don't want to call it one-man show, but I wanted to tell a story,
Yeah.
but I didn't want people to know that they were being told a story.
Yeah.
So I wanted them to come and think it was the same, like, hey, these are just bits and hard-hitting stand-up. And then like you're like, wait, what is going on? And then the end. And then on tour, I was able to kind of get it there. And I remember as we were editing the special, I was like, fuck, should I just start right on the beginning of the story?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I didn't. I'm glad that it kind of subverts it, because I think that the reaction people had was, and I think you only get to do this once, because if I do it again, they'll be like, well, we know you were going to tell a story, you know,
Right.
which I'm sure you have
Welcome
to go
to
through.
my world.
Exactly, right? It's like the first time you do it, they're like, what the
When's
fuck
it
did I
gonna
do?
turn?
Yeah.
When are the jokes gonna turn into a really serious vignette?
Right? But
Yeah.
like, that's probably something that, I don't know, maybe your storytelling has gotten so much better.
It has to get better.
Yes, but the delta is probably smaller from special to special, but from the first one,
Yeah.
like the first one, you're going from 0 to where it was.
No, absolutely. And I got choked up when you showed the video
Cool.
of your wife and daughter. It's very emotional.
Yeah.
And I get choked. I'm choked up now, even thinking about it.
Oh, thank you.
It's very moving, and it's very. People should watch it. It's on Netflix. It's very moving, and it's very vulnerable. And I think significantly, it's vulnerable from a person who people would not expect to be vulnerable, and I think that that's significant.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, like, I'll be honest, I think me being the problem with getting pregnant made it a lot easier to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever be able to do it if it was my wife's issue with eggs or anything like that.
Yeah, of course. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. But yeah, to me it was like exciting. I just thought my life was boring, to be honest with you. I thought my opinions were way more interesting than my life.
Right.
Like I was like, okay, I got, fun takes on this, and you know what I mean? Like I
Well, you said this thing to me at one point when we were at the Cellar, where you were like, I'm starting to realize that like take culture is a little boring compared to our own personal stories.
100%. And then the most elite version of it is when like society calls for that story, like whatever that story is about.
Say more about that.
Like not elite version of it, like doesn't make the art better, but it makes it like more potentially successful. So like social utility.
Yeah.
When social utility meets art, that's when things are like almost inescapable.
Yeah.
But one of the cool things about art is like sometimes there's no social utility, but that's what you want to create.
It's funny. your special is called Life, and it was filmed at the Beacon. My special is called The Good Life, and it was filmed at the Beacon. It's so.
I'm just doing a knockoff of Birbiglia. I just want to let you guys know it's a shittier story than Birbiglia would tell. Okay, it's at the same venue. Just watch his, and it's something like that with more fucks.
No, but my director Seth and I would talk every night before I perform the show, which is about how tonight this show may not be for everybody. It's for who needs it tonight.
Yeah.
Because it's a very challenging story about my dad having a stroke and kind of going through that. And it's like the responses that people come up to me with, and I'm sure they do with you, with Life, to me are way more powerful than any "that was hilarious" or any "I've never laughed so hard" thing.
Yeah.
Like, what's the most extreme experience you've had with people coming up to you about Life?
I mean, to me, I get like really emotional reading the stories. So I just screenshot all these like stories. So all these people who are going through infertility, I don't even like using that word.
Yeah.
They're going through fertility issues. No, it's negative.
Yeah, no, you're a snowflake.
I am sensitive.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm also sensitive in terms of like positivity.
You're sensitive about your things.
Yeah, on my things. Yes. Okay. It's about me. No. But like I would rather call it fertility journey, not infertility.
Right.
Journey. Like,
yeah.
I just feel like,
God, you make me learn all these words.
I know, that's crazy.
I can't keep up.
This is what it's like being a lib, dude.
Well, it's funny because I do think it's a very. It is. You're opening up to the audience, and you are someone who has this accent, which God knows what the fuck this accent is. You got the mustache. I don't know what that means. But like, you're a guy.
Yeah.
You're very much a guy,
Sure.
and you're telling this very vulnerable story. And you're an example to me of someone who's been a comic and a really good comic for a long time.
Thanks.
And you're having a moment. And part of it is that you're opening up to the audience, and part of it is that your politics seem to align with a huge swath of people in the country.
It's interesting. It's like the political thing. It's, you know, that the annoying thing about politics, it's just, it immediately creates a good guy, bad guy narrative no matter what.
Yeah.
And the good guy isn't earned.
Yeah, agreed.
Right?
I think that's true.
It's not earned. Like, if you like me because of something I say politically, you don't like me. You like you.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying it in a way that makes you feel good about yourself.
That's right.
And the bad guy is, if I say something that goes against something you feel, you don't actually dislike me.
Yeah.
I'm just emblematic of any guy that you hate that holds these certain opinions. Right? So to me, one of the beautiful things about stand-up is that it's deserved. It's earned when it's done well.
Agreed.
That's why I hate the pandering. Like, I would rather say a joke that I know that you're going to hate.
Yeah.
But do it so well that you end up laughing.
Yeah.
Because it feels earned or deserved.
Yeah.
Like, I eye roll anytime, like, I'm in New York and there's like, or if I eye roll anytime I'm in Texas and it's just some like fucking free speech or whatever. And it's just like, you're just saying the thing. Like, it's just, you're just saying the thing that's going to get people to agree.
Right.
Right. And it's the same thing in New York. You could just do some like super like liberal take and everybody there is just like, all right, we're supposed to laugh at this.
Right.
You know? So the annoying thing about politics versus like being personal is when you do a personal joke.
Yeah.
And granted, I understand like people will relate to it because they've gone through it and they might see me in their experiences.
Yeah.
But at least they're seeing a version that we both connect on. And I don't think there's many people that are watching me and going, I didn't go through IVF. He's a villain.
No, absolutely.
Whereas,
no, and that's part of the reason why I perform so many shows internationally is that I try to understand what's human about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So when I go to England or Australia, it's like, oh, okay, what's the part that defies culture? And it's just, what do we all have in common?
Yeah.
You do tons of international shows.
No, honestly, like my international stuff is literally just like from doing jokes about different cultures.
Right.
And that's just me being like a curious guy.
Yeah.
Like I just want to know. I just want to know about you. And I think I just get that from my dad. Like anybody my dad spoke to was like just the most curious. When he's talking to you, you're the most interesting person he's ever spoken to.
Yeah.
If you're a guy that's holding glasses because you're like the busboy at the restaurant, he's like, how can you hold all those glasses?
This is the thing. Yeah. This is the thing that drives me nuts about the election.
Yeah.
Is people went nuts about Rogan.
Yeah.
And every degree of separation I had with the Harris campaign, I begged them, please get her to go on Rogan, because what's going to happen is he is just a curious person and he'll just ask questions and she'll look great. She wouldn't go on and she wouldn't go on yours. And I think it's a huge mistake.
Well, this is the to what we were saying earlier, like this is sometimes the burden of the party of progress is like the concern of ostracizing one of your groups. And that is much easier to do when you are the one that's trying to create more opportunity for more marginalized groups. Right? Like, I don't think Trump has to care as much because he's like, if I piss off the Qs, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I think the Dems are going like, ugh, I could say that thing about pronouns and that might be turned a certain way. Like, I thought one of the most relatable moments for Kamala is when she was like, if somebody breaks into my house, she's getting shot. Mm-hmm. If somebody breaks into my house, he's getting shot. Do you remember that? I think she was
I do remember that.
And, like, she was kind of criticized for that. And
I didn't follow that side of it.
But, like, I was like, whoa, that's a real cool moment. That's a relatable moment. Yeah. I grew up in New York City. I'm going to have a fucking gun. Nobody has a gun in this city.
Right.
Like, but this feeling of somebody intruding in your space and you have, like, a child there. Like, you do anything to protect them. I hit up Charlemagne immediately because, Charlemagne was involved with
I know,
like, yo, more.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. And he's like, this is who she really is.
It's interesting. Like, I think it was Jon Favreau from Positive America said this thing to Hassan Minhaj on his podcast, and I think this is completely true, is the reason why podcasts are so influential is because the people listening know they talk for like 1 to 3 hours. This is kind of what they're like. This is a kind of a peek behind the curtain, whereas Jon Favreau pointed out, if I go on MSNBC or CNN, it's a 5-minute segment. I know they're going to ask these 3 questions. I kind of know what my 3 answers are going to be.
Yeah.
And that's it. And the Americans are kind of done with that.
Yeah, it's one of the things I learned from this, and this is like just from doing like press around the specials, and I was going on all these different people's podcasts. After the last special, I kind of just stopped doing pods. And I was like, you know what? I want people to kind of understand my curiosity and what I'm into and like get a sense of me. So I'm going to bring all these different people to my podcast.
Yeah.
And I realized that I'm just communicating to the people who already know me, who I am.
Yeah.
They don't need and I also am bringing them there just because I'm curious. But I thought a byproduct of that curiosity would be like public sentiment about me would be more understood.
Right.
No, people only know what they consume of you.
Right.
Right? And they're not going to consume every one of your episodes. So when I was doing these convos and like having great convos like this, where like maybe we disagree on some things, but I have a lot of respect for you. So like in no way am I going, oh, how can I make him look stupid? Or I don't even know if I'm capable of that, but like not even trying, right? I'm like, I think you get well, you don't have to, but maybe even your audience gets like a more well-rounded sense of me. Like we might disagree on everything politically, but maybe it's not, oh, he's evil and he thinks that I'm bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. Like one of the things I've really admired about you in your comedy career is that when I started on comedy, it was before you. I moved to New York in 2000, and the gatekeepers of comedy really decided.
Yeah.
It decided you get a sitcom, you're going to be a talk show host, you're going to be on the sketch comedy show.
Yeah.
And now it's like people like you and Josh Johnson, who was on this podcast last week.
Josh is crushing it.
He's crushing it. And it's like no gatekeepers involved. Like you have made you a star. And the audiences have decided. And we are in a climate right now that, as far as I can understand, is completely unprecedented in the history of entertainment. So what I would say is, because a lot of creatives listen to this show, what is your advice to a creative who's starting out and they want to make what they make and have it reach an audience?
One, I would say like now is the best time in history. Like be really grateful. And sometimes it's hard when you're creating a lot of stuff and it's not immediately getting success. It's very easy to get like bitter and kind of resent other people that are successful. I'm sure when you started getting tons of success with what you were doing, I bet all of your contemporaries were really happy for you and they loved it.
You probably witnessed a lot of my contemporaries privately being happy for me at the cellar when you were coming up.
No, I didn't hear anybody shitting on you.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe it was a little past when people were shitting on me. When I first came to New York,
Yeah.
people came down on me hard.
So-
Because I was like 24 on Letterman. People like came down hard.
So somebody's 30, they never got a chance to do a late night show and they think you're taking their slot.
Yeah,
Which is
brutal.
not fair to you, by the way.
Brutal.
But it is kind of like this unfortunate human instinct we have. It's shitty.
Sure.
But it is what it is. So you've experienced it a lot. But it's better to experience the hate from your success than to be the one hating
Yeah, of
on
course.
whatever. But what I would say now is that the cool thing about the internet, if you create authentically and your thing is good, the internet will help people find it. Doesn't guarantee that it's going to be 10 million or 20 million people. It might be 200,000 people, which is
Yeah.
still awesome if you're creating your thing.
Oh my God.
So this is my piece of advice. And I know it's not the exact question, but this is the thing that I would suggest. The algorithm is incredibly powerful at getting something to the people that want to consume it. My concern is that a lot of creators now are letting the algorithm dictate to them what they create. And they're not taking advantage of the greatest time in history for creators, which is like this decentralized marketplace where we can create our own authentic things and put it out there in the world. There's a million criticisms you could say of what I just said right now. Oh, Schulz, you did this topic or this, blah, 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 for sure. One thing that I think that like I feel very proud of, especially with stand-up, like I don't think algorithmically an IVF fertility journey is the fucking smash hit, you know, but I would say with the pod specifically is like, there is a way that you can grift off the left or the right and you just pick a fucking lane and then you just go, not saying you're doing that by the way, but like there are people that are just going, I'm just going to be right wing guy or I'm going to be left wing guy. The cost of not doing that is you're going to have episodes that aren't going to perform. And I would say good.
Yeah.
Good. That
Yeah.
means you're not letting the algorithm completely dictate your creative process.
Sure.
Like, that's good. The things should go back and forth. And to just be very disciplined in the things that you create and make sure they're the things that you really want to do. That, I guess that would be my advice, because now, back in the day, it was just an executive probably telling us, hey, could you change this thing, whatever. Now the algorithm is letting you know.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that the thing I want to point out to people is, you know, I moved to New York in 2000. I started doing comedy in the late 90s, working the door at the Washington, D.C. Improv. The barriers for entry in that era were so big.
The fact that you're on Letterman at 24, like the amount of hate you must have got, it's like unbelievable.
And the
it
barriers
seemed impossible at the time.
And also like filming a comedy special, like the idea, the fact that you and Josh Johnson are able to just
Josh is doing it every week.
Yeah, just filming yourself and then just putting it on YouTube. It is, yeah, I can't even. It's like a fucking time machine.
So
I feel like I've lived through.
We have this like gratitude for it because we knew like what it was before and how like vulnerable it was. You had no control of your destiny at all.
Yeah.
And now we know we have it. The next crop never knew what begging Comedy Central to give you a special was. So now they just know, oh, I post clips and crowd work does good, so I'll do crowd work. And it's like, okay, something else is also going to do good. Nobody expected that.
And that's going to change.
Exactly. Like,
whatever's popular this year is not going to be popular next year.
Yeah, like when I was doing the crowd work, when I put out that crowd work special years, nobody was posting crowd work. Like it wasn't a thing, right? And then it blew up and then other people was like, oh, okay, that's a thing to go do it. There might be a day where like storytelling becomes so popular that you're doing one-liner jokes. You're doing like Borscht Belt, take my wife, please. Like, you know, like this could happen. What I would say is look for that space too. I feel like when you were really kind of, I don't want to say creating story. No, you're not creating, but like when we were really spearheading that genre, that now you see a lot of other people doing. Maybe a lot is not, but there are other people that are.
It's become more
influenced,
popular.
Yeah, by you, let's say. At the time where you were doing it, you don't see a lot. It would be like more British acts that would have like a singular kind of theme. But in America, not very common.
Yeah.
You would see some stories and stuff. Like Cosby would tell stories.
And Pryor told stories.
Pryor told stories.
Yeah.
But it was chunks.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the popularity, obviously it grows.
Yeah. No, you're right. And no one watching your special is thinking, oh, Andrew must have talked to Mike Birbiglia at the Cellar one night about storytelling.
All these people are like, oh, why'd you decide to do it? And obviously I tell them the people that I spoke to, but like the people just watching it don't understand the trickle down effect.
Yeah.
You know, and like even people listening to this pod for the first time, and obviously there's things they may disagree or agree with, they might be like, wait a minute. So Birbiglia created Schulz?
That's right. Which is, hopefully is the takeaway. Minus the Puerto Rican jokes. The last thing we do is working it out for a cause. Is there a nonprofit that you like to contribute to, and we will contribute to them and link to them?
Oh my God, I love this. Okay, so there's a guy he plays for the Yankees. His name is Carlos Rodon. He and his wife, I think, went on a similar journey. He asked me if I would come do this thing for him, so I want to be working with his. Isn't specifically towards fertility. Okay. But I said that I would do some stuff with him in the fall. But so if we could do his, and I'll get you like all the information. For
Amazing, that. Andrew. Congrats on the special. It's fantastic. I'm thrilled it's so popular.
Thank you so much for helping me with it.
Well,
it's all your responsibility.
I'll see you over at the Cellar.